A long time ago, on a comic book forum, I don't remember which one, but there was a question that asked, "What is the greatest comic book of all time?" And there was a lot of different responses. Everybody has their own opinion, of course. But I'll always remember the best answer that was given, and it was the complete right answer, and it was that one you read as a kid. Um, these are bound to be among our favorite comics, that one that we can remember that somehow affected us and got through to us. So, with that in mind, I'd like to present, as many other people have, my top 10 comics with runners up and honorable mentions. So, if you're ready, let's get started. Let me preface by saying I am mainly a DC guy. I know that's not a popular position to hold these days, but that's how I grew up. Now, that said, I have read a lot of Marvel, especially through the 80s. And I've read a fair amount of independent, but most of my reading was done as a kid in the 70s. For my number 10, though, I'd like to say that, just because once you get past the age of 13, that doesn't mean you can't appreciate comics anymore. So for number 10, I'll bring up one that I'll always remember and I thought was incredibly clever, and that's Ghost in the Shell by Mazmin Shiro. This is my Dark Horse first print. Number 1, great series, great concepts, spawned a franchise, you know, made you think, and just brilliantly done. And again, this is why manga's done so well in the last 20 or so years here in the West. Is just fantastic stories, fantastic artwork, great concepts. We'll get into a little bit of philosophy here about something that's missing on the cover. If you look right over here, no comic books code. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but for the first Ghost in the Shell, number 10, great read, great ideas. For number 9, I'd like to say top 10 on this list. It's not about what's the most valuable. For me, it's rather about what I remember, what is significant to me. For example, like my next one is an X-Men title. Now, this was a birthday gift a long time ago on the first appearance of Gambit. This is a valuable book, and it's in great condition. And to be honest, I've never read it. This one I have read. This is X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 196. The reason this one is special to me is because this one got me back into comics way back when. We all go through that period where we enjoy them as kids, and then we get into different things, whether it be books, games, school, other things. But maybe somebody makes a recommendation, or we see something on the shelf that, we'll give it a shot. And I really enjoyed this one. And this one actually spawned a large run of X-Men for me through the 80s, which I wound up selling to a comic shop for $100 before I moved back out west. I'm sure there was issues in that run well worth over $100 these days, but that's all right. But I did keep 196, and of course I kept 266 because it was a birthday gift for my brother. So that was a nice gift. And good titles. Oh yeah, and here's that sneaky little comics code too. You can barely see it, but zip right over there. And we'll chat about that. Even though, in 196, there's still a fair amount of violence. And at that point, I think the code was quite lax. I guess this would be early 90s, I believe. So there we go. There's a Marvel title for everybody, and the next one will be DC. Alex Toth isn't my favorite artist, but he's probably top three. Neil Adams is number one, which explains why I'm a DC guy, because I love Neil Adams' Batman. But this next one is not a Neil Adams book. It's probably my first love in comics has always been horror. I love superheroes, but I grew up reading the scary anthology titles, and this was one of them. This is Witching Hour #1. Now, I have a fair amount of Witching Hour. I go up the series here, but we'll go with #1 because that introduces the hosts, Mildred, Mordred, and Cynthia, and especially Cynthia. I'm a big Cynthia fan, what can I say? But I enjoy the interaction of the horror hosts, and what a fantastic invention, all the way back from, I guess the most famous would be the Crypt Keeper from the old EC Comics, but Cain, Abel from House of Mystery and House of Secrets respectively, also great. And yeah, it's some very good stories, great art. Really appreciate Witching Hour #1. I actually picked up #4 when I moved to Calgary in the mid-90s, I think in a dollar bin or something like that, and that got me into collecting all the Witching Hour again. So I have a pretty good run, but yeah, it really is a great comic as well. Some good stories in Witching Hour #1. So there you go. Speaking of horror comics, I have a collection. What can I say? I literally have the House of Mystery 174, which is the return to the mystery format. I believe that is in late 1968. First appearance of Cain, our horror host, 175. Some sweet Bernie Wrightson work here on 179. He's my #2 artist, by the way. So right from 174 to 321, I have, and I will, just as an honorable mention, I will say one of the later series there, House of Mystery #20. There is a story in there that is just perfect, and I love that it had Michael Kaluta. That guy's a very underrated artist for many years, and it was great to that he was showing a little bit of love there. So if you ever have a chance to pick up House of Mystery 20 from Vertigo, and it's usually like in the dollar bins, but fantastic story in there, I'd advise you to get it. But anyway, #7, even though we have all those more key books, certainly, is not a valuable book at all. It's Unexpected 202, What Comes Hopping Down the Bunny Trail. The thing is, any kid that ever read this book, and I think it was in 1982 or 1980, can't remember which date, but any kid that read that story remembers that story. It was unexpected, all right. And it's surprising that it is approved by the code. It's right there, and it just it's quite a twist, quite something shocking, you know. And that's why it's a favorite. It's a lot of people my age, like if you bring up these, and if they read it when they were younger, they will remember it just because it was such a shock. It was a great story. Again, like it's what the comic means to you, and that is that one you read as a kid. That's the one I read as a kid that I'll always remember. So there you have it, #7, Unexpected 202. I love me some Swamp Thing. I really love Swamp Thing. So much so should almost make this two categories, but I won't. Um, but I will have an honorable mention at the end as well as some others. So, I mean, right from this I read as a kid. I mean, that's Swamp Thing #1. Not first appearance, but first appearance in his own title. I love Abigail Arcane. First Abby Arcane right there. I love Alan Moore. Oh my God, I love Alan Moore. The Body. Not Alan Moore's first, I have that as well. That's 20. But this is the big shock reveal with Alan Moore later on. I love John Constantine. I'll be careful with this one because, man, it's getting expensive. First, John Constantine. I have 2 issues of 25 with the cameo as well. I'm not bringing those out. But my sentimental favorite on the run, on this Alan Moore run, is 29. Not a key issue. But you will notice something distinctive about this. This is the first one on his run that doesn't have the code. And there's a reason it doesn't have the code, because that is an adult comic book. I said I was going to talk a little bit about the comics code, and many people have covered this, but to me it was one of the most blatant censorships in American history. Just not something you would expect. A rating system, I agree with. Warnings, whatever, know what you're in for, but you shouldn't have a body dictate what can be discussed, what can be done artistically in a medium. You can have warnings, and that's fine, but this is, of course, my opinion, and it always will be, is that the artist should be free to create. That doesn't mean they'll create things meant for 8-year-olds. Doesn't mean they'll create things meant for 48-year-olds. It just means that they have artistic license, and for the government or a regulatory body to dictate what can be shown, what can be discussed, what can be created, what can't be, I do not agree with that. I do agree with, however, is that I love Swamp Thing. And so I decided we'll leave Saga of Swamp Thing 29, just because it took that leap into the adult spectrum of comics for DC as number 6, which means my sentimental favorite coming up here. For number 5, House of Secrets 92. No, that is not a facsimile edition. That is the real deal. First appearance of Swamp Thing, and lovely Bernie Wrightson art. Fantastic stuff. Key issue by any measure. It's one of the most recognizable horror comics there is. I bought that one, I'm trying to remember, I think it was the late 90s comic shop here in town for $100. It's probably only about a 3. So, but yeah, it's worth significantly more now. But just a lovely, lovely book. And again, I felt kind of bad paying that much for a comic book way back when, because it's, I think the most I'd paid up to that point was maybe $40, and this one was $100, but it had been one I'd always wanted, and I'm glad I picked it up when I did. But there you go, number 5. In life, there are mysteries. I like mysteries. One of the mysteries of my life is why I like Mr. Miracle so much. I just do. Maybe it's that Jack Kirby goodness, and maybe it was the fact, I read this one as a kid, and it's the bright colors, the almost gaudiness to it, the Jack Kirby goodness. It's one you stick with you. But it's funny, as an adult, there's one I like better. as the character of Mr. Miracle's evolved, and he's actually gotten married. And I would have to say now, Mr. Miracle #1 is my favorite. #4 is. This is the first appearance of Big Barda. I kind of love the fact they're married, and they have adventures together, and she's a great character as well. Speaking of romance, and hey, look, the cat's awake. #3 may come as a bit of a shock to those still watching the video. Okay, I like Batman. I like horror comics. I like the spooky stuff. I even like, the superheroes and Jack Kirby. But dads, don't make the mistake of buying your daughters romance comics, as I once did. I, tried to get them into comics, and they were reading the Archies. They liked the Adventure Time. So I thought, okay, I'll pick up these romance comics and see if they read them. Well, you know who did read them? It was this guy right here, me. So I found out a few things about romance comics. They're really hard to get in high grade. Also, they have some amazing, beautiful covers out there. Lovely artwork. Just things you won't see in other genres. I would say they're probably more like art than other genres. It's dealing with love, relationships, jealousy, that sort of thing, as opposed to the action, violence, danger, what you normally get from sort of the boys' comics, right? So, but anyway, #3 on my list is actually one of my favorite covers of all time. It's from DC, from their Falling in Love title. Now, this is issue 99, Falling in Love, and this is a 12 center from way back, and that is a gorgeous cover. Come on, you got to admit. And also highly collectible, believe it or not. A lot of people don't realize that romance comics aren't cheap, and there's a market for them. So, don't write them off as just, oh, that's not a superhero. Because they're hard to come across in good shape, and they have some lovely covers, lovely artwork as well. So that was up on the wall for quite a while, and then I took it down because I don't want it getting sun bleached. So there we have it, #3, a romance comic. Oh look, the cat has left. The light is fading. Time to wrap this up. #2 on my list is basically an homage by Neil Adams to a very classic Batman cover. I believe it was Batman or Detective 31, very early Batman cover. But Neil Adams is no stranger to the damsel in peril in a gothic manner art style. As you can see, that's House of Secrets 88. So he's well versed in this subject. But my #2 is actually Batman 227. Very classic cover. Again, the homage to Detective 31 from the Golden Age. But I just love me that cover. So #2, as I said, I'm a huge Neil Adams fan. Fantastic artist, prolific. Oh my God, the amount of comics he has credits on is astronomical. Just outstanding. And I just before I get to #1, I just wanted to say, for those that I still do buy the occasional comic. A lot of my favorites are basically from the 70s, because that's when I grew up reading comics. So, like I said, that one you read as a kid, that's why it makes sense. But I do, if something catches my eye, I do pick it up. So A little punchline there, and also speaking of punchline, but it's not so much the hype of the character. I like the contrast between punchline and Harley, sort of the bad girl and even worse girl with the Joker. So it's an interesting dynamic. I'm glad they covered it. So like I said, I do pick up the occasional new comic these days. Try and help the industry. So there we go. Finally, we come to number one. And speaking of the Joker, I do like the Joker as a character, and has he been done to death? Yeah, probably. It's interesting to see various sidekicks and how they handle it now, but the Joker is not my favorite Batman villain. Nope. My favorite Batman villain appeared in this comic book right here. Batman 232. For those that don't know, that's Ra's, and yes, it is pronounced Ra's Al Ghul. Yes, I know a lot of people like to say Raish, but the creators pronounce it Ra's, and I've always pronounced it Ra's as well, so there you go. Batman 232. Now, I picked that up before the Dark Knight movies came out with Christopher Nolan, thankfully, because my God, did that skyrocket in value afterwards. That was a $40 comic off of eBay. It's about a very fine. I love it. I love it so. My favorite comic. I love Ra's al Ghul. I also love Talia. All right, glasses are off now. As we talk about number one. What's as a kind of runner-up here, Detective 411. Now, this is the first appearance of Talia al Ghul. What's really cool is that Talia appeared before Ra's, and you didn't know she was the daughter of the demon. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant way to introduce a major villain here. Because what happens, she's sort of set up as the damsel in distress, and she was studying medicine, kidnapped by Dr. Dark, who was in her father's employ but was sort of going rogue. I can't remember the story exactly, but he was going to kill Batman, and Talia wound up shooting him in the back to save Batman. So again, you have her as a sort of lead-in, but Batman goes through so many romantic interests that you don't take note of it. It's there's this foreign girl in danger, and oh my gosh, and she's studying medicine, but then it becomes the family dynamic. It's very complicated for poor Mr. Wayne. But yeah, no, I love Ra's. I think I love Talia just as much because there's that whole interwoven relationship with the three of them, and that later on Ra's wants to bring in Bruce as his successor. And now the two are very equivalent in the way they do things. They just have vastly differing goals in the way how they want to get there, I guess. Strangely enough, I mean, Ra's wants a peaceful world. He wants harmony restored, and so does Bruce. It's just their means are incredibly different. Bruce will not kill, where Ra's, that is what he does to achieve the means. Those are the means to the end. Basically murder, assassination, as quick as possible to get there. Whereas Bruce, that's always been the one thing he won't do. So it's interesting that way. And Talia is kind of caught in the middle of this power struggle. And she becomes a player in her own right later on as her character evolves. And I hate it when they don't treat her right because she is such a great character. But to me, Batman 232 is the issue, and Roz is the guy. But it's interesting to see how his daughter and later his grandson Damien have come about and out of this. So well done, well done. And this is that time for Batman comics. Holy cow! There's Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams during that time were just knocking it out of the park. There's a span of a few years in the early 70s. Just amazing. Oh yes, here, just let me pause for a second. I'll just show you one more honorable mention here. Detective 395. This is where it all started. This is the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil combination that sort of put Batman into the night again. It's before then he was basically known for the Batman 66 TV series, kind of goofy, that Adam West portrayal, and that's fine. But this gave Batman his edge back, and this one is Secret of the Waiting Graves. Fantastic issue. Love this issue. Just boom. But I do love Batman 232 more. So there you have it. There's the list. So number 10, Ghost in the Shell. Number 1, Masmer and Shiro. Lovely. Number 9, X-Men 196, kind of the comic that got me back into it as I guess a late teenager, or yeah, can't remember the exact age, but yeah, I would have been closer to 20, I think, at that time. Witching Hour number 1, Alex Toth goodness. Pardon me. Unexpected 202. Yeah, nobody expected that bunny rabbit. Saga of the Swamp Thing 29, because, this is breaking away from the code. This is making comics adult. House of Secrets 92, because that is one of the great covers of all time, and also first appearance of Swamp Thing. What's not to like? Mr. Miracle number 4, Big Barda, scot-free. Hey, this is quite a story setting up here. Falling in Love 99 was number 3. Fantastic cover. Just that is art, my friends. Number 2, Batman 227, because that is also art, and that is one of the great covers of all times. And then number 1, Batman 232, one of the best Batman villains ever, Ra's al Ghul. And that's my list. And if you want to put on yours, let me know. I'll watch your list as well. And thanks very much for watching.